Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm delighted to speak in this debate, and I thank my honourable friend, the member for Motherwell and Wishaw, for bringing this important debate forward. We all understand the value and the importance of having post offices in our communities. Over 2 million small businesses, 62% use them at least once a month. And in rural areas, they are vital, with 36% of rural businesses using post offices weekly. 1 in 4 of all businesses are registered in rural areas, contributing well over £200 billion to our economy. And the Citizens Advice Service has been clear that 8 in 10 small businesses in remote rural areas will actually lose money if local post offices were to be closed. We all remember around 2008, when gradually post offices were being run down under the previous Labour government of the day, when the services our local post offices could provide were wrested away from them, paving the way for mass closures. And I remember in my constituency, Madam Chair, in 2008, long before I was elected in 2015, I remember going round doors asking people to sign a petition to save their local post offices. I and other party activists did this in Skelmerley, Glengarnock and Kilwinning, because naively we thought we could make a difference. But it turned out that the so-called post office consultations were not much more than a sham. To make it worse, we had our then local Labour MP voting on 5 separate occasions to close post offices across the UK under the Blair government, and then immediately afterwards putting out local press releases to the local papers lamenting the closure of our local post offices. It is not hard to see sometimes, Madam Chair, why people become cynical about politics. And some of these post offices are now being closed by stealth. And by that, I mean that postmasters are either retiring or shutting up shop because it has become so difficult to make a living out of this business. Important though that business is for our communities where they work. Postmasters in my constituency tell me that they were earning minimum wage, and we know from recent announcements that as of October 2019, although I don't know why that is taking so long, we know that sub-postmasters will receive better remuneration from the post office for key services that they are providing for the public. The question is this improved payment enough for the long-term sustainability of this service? And we all have to reserve our judgment on that. Our postmasters tell us that they hand count thousands of pounds daily, and this money is accepted, checked, double-checked, bagged, remmed out and sent away for much less money than the banks charge their customers. The gap is large, which means that either banks or the post office is making a lot of money on the back of postmasters, and that doesn't seem fair. Our postmasters are taking on a greater role in our communities as banks abandon our towns. They are an important amenity in our communities and offer a lifeline on everything from pensions to benefits and increasingly day-to-day banking services. Our post offices in so many towns are the last place where face-to-face services are still available. We all understand how important it is that banks properly remunerate postmasters for the services they provide to major banks, which turn over huge profits. And I am pleased that there is to be a near threefold increase on current rates. However, I know some postmasters in my constituency who say this simply doesn't go far enough, and that causes me a lot of concern. Indeed, we are all keen to see if the details of this offer is sufficient to protect our postmasters and, importantly, the network's sustainability as a whole. And I've been lobbying the government and the Post Office Chief Executive for 2 years about this, so I'm delighted at last we have made some progress, but the devil, of course, will be in the detail. And I've been speaking out on the threat to our post offices network in 4 different debates since I was first elected in 2015. We seem to have them once a year. And this is an issue which I campaigned on with SNP activists in my community long before I was elected. So I will continue to do that until our postmasters get the fair deal that they deserve. Our post offices are too important to be left to flounder at the mercy of banks who are too big to fail, apparently, and a government, successive UK governments, who have consistently failed to recognise the importance of our post offices to our communities. I will indeed.
Thank you for giving way. I just wanted to have it on the record, Dame Cheryl, because of the very good campaign that this party, the Scots National Party, and others as well have campaigned on behalf of the banks that are closing and the importance of post offices to fill that gap. I think their campaign, which they've had over the last period of time, to outline and highlight the issues where banks are closing at a rate, which means that the importance of the post offices are increasing, is so important. Yeah.
I thank the honourable gentleman for that observation and very much welcome it. Yeah. Thank you. I will indeed.
Thank my honourable friend for giving way. She talks about the importance of post offices to our community. In fact, we talk about them as a public service. And as a public service, does she share my concerns when we hear talk of profit or loss? Public service costs money and they must be invested in. We should not be considering profit when we're talking about a vital community lifeline.
There is always the danger, Madam Chair, that when we talk about profits in relation to public services, that we understand the value of a pound, but we don't understand the value of something which cannot be measured in pounds, shilling and pence. But this failure to recognise the value of the post office to our communities can be seen in the fact that 74 Crown post offices have been franchised in WH Smith stores, and that there are reports that franchising has been done without proper consultation with existing post offices, meaning that the competition risks destabilising the network further. There has to be a strategic consideration on franchising. In addition, it's also deeply concerning that the post office appears to have admitted that there is no contingency plan in the event of WH Smith, which has been suffering decline over the past 14 years, and that is continuing. There's no contingency plan if WH Smith actually collapses. What does that say about the strategic planning to protect our post offices? I would suggest it says rather a lot. The UK Government seems to have a pattern of abdicating responsibility on this matter, insisting it's a matter for the Post Office, which paved the way for the Government to latterly insist it could do nothing about the banks, which we owned as taxpayers, from fleeing from our towns. There is a pattern emerging here. At the heart of this debate must be the recognition that the Post Office network has a vitally important role in the day-to-day lives of many of our members, many of our constituents, older people generally, and often the most vulnerable in society. We believe that the Post Office is more and must be more than a commercial entity and serves a distinct social purpose. The Government must commit to a programme that ensures no Post Office closures and urgently renew its funding of the network to safeguard its future. Post Office branches are particularly and hugely important to older people. The services offered are a lifeline. People pay bills, they access their benefits and they get advice. Older people and those on low incomes make greater use of cash and banking services and bill payments, and vulnerable groups and remote rural residents use post offices for informal community services like support and information, a touchstone of our communities. It is not good enough for the post office to have been managed into decline the way it has been. For too long they have been undermined, undervalued, and our postmasters underpaid. As a result, some of our most valued post offices are being closed either by stripping away their sustainability and then earmarking them for closure. Now, in a new era, we need them more than ever. The neglect and the indifference has to stop. It is time to properly pay and stand up for our postmasters. It's time to stop the rot and see our postmasters for what they are, community champions, often not missed until they are gone, struggling on to survive in a hostile business environment where making a living of any kind is increasingly challenging. That needs to be recognised and saluted. The Minister for Business said in a recent adjournment debate that her government did support postmasters, and this could be evidenced by the fact that it was contained in their manifesto at the election. Well, today I hope she is listening and will discuss with her colleagues in government what more she can do to show this support in more than just having a line in a manifesto, but in a positive, concrete set of actions.